All right. Hi, everybody. Steve Caton with Alteza, and I'm excited to have Courtney Freeman with me today for our on-site conversation. And we are going to talk about something that has been a bit of a, I don't know, a little bit of a mystery for me, but something that is like aspirational, and that is a sabbatical. In Courtney's case, a mini sabbatical. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what that looked like for her. She did this last year in late September through Thanksgiving, and we were having a conversation about it. And I was just so intrigued and jealous, and I wanted to know how she did it. So we're going to talk about that. But before we do, Courtney, I want to let you introduce yourself to the audience.
Thanks, Steve. Well, I really appreciate you inviting me here today. Really happy to talk about this subject. So I'm Courtney Freeman, and I own an HR firm called Powerfully Simple HR and Leadership. And what we do is we work with companies who are growing and scaling, and we help them set up their people operations systems. So that's usually a company who maybe has not hired yet, or maybe only hired a few people, but they're ready to scale and they know they need to put those things into place. So we work with their leadership team, we work with getting their HR system set up, and we work a lot with doing that in the framework of the culture that they're trying to create.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love the work you do, Courtney, and I'm looking forward to the day that I need to call you up and say we're ready for it.
Yeah, right
Um,
on.
so the fact that you are in HR and leadership make sense to me that you would think about a sabbatical. You obviously understand kind of the value of rest and taking a break. But tell us what motivated you to do it in the first place.
Okay, so that's a great question. And I will say that, one of the things that I talk with our clients a lot about is how to not get into that place of burnout. So if you take a rest before you get into the place of burnout, you can stay in a place of creativity. Whereas if you're already in burnout and you have to take a rest, like because you get sick or something, that time becomes less creative. It's more about healing and less about resting and enjoyment and creativity. So I had had some life changes over the past year. I had gone through a divorce. And when you're a business owner, your business and your personal life are often very entwined.
Yep.
And so, in that time, I was taking a look at what do I want from the second half of my life, and what do I want my business to look like in that time, and how can I make my business, in this framework that where we're working with clients who are our most fun clients, our most profitable clients, and the type of companies that can grow with us. And as I delved into, our numbers and what we had done in the past and what I was thinking about doing in the future, I just really found that I was so mired in the weeds that I didn't have the energy or even the ability in my brain to take a step back and look at what is really best for the company.
Yeah.
So that was when I yeah, I actually talked with a colleague who said, I just came back from a 2-week vacation, and I was like, a 2-week vacation? How did you do that? And she said, well, I just told my clients I was going on vacation, and then I went on vacation. I was like, oh,
Okay.
okay. Well, that doesn't sound too hard.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, what you're speaking to there, Courtney. I heard this inability, and I totally resonate with it. Like when we're in the day to day, and we are just stuck there, and it's hard to get out. We cannot kind of get up at a higher level and take a strategic look at our business, but we also kind of lose sight of our own well-being too, right? And so I love how you kind of tied those two together. So after you talked to your friend about the 2-week vacation and you were inspired to try this, what was it that scared you about it?
Yeah. So I had a lot of resistance with those first thoughts. So um, I worked with my coach, David Weaver, and he asked me the same question. You want to do this, so what scares you? And I said, okay, it comes down to two things: money
Hmm.
and what will people think?
Okay.
Yeah. And that was a hard one for me to admit. And so we peeled those two things back. So what does money look like? So what I did was create a budget for, the way I saw it. If I took a sabbatical for 2 months, because I am the primary person who does sales within the company, we're really talking about 3 months here, because of that pipeline issue. So I took a look at, what does our budget look like for 3 months? What is our current pipeline? What do we have lined up? And, what do I want to commit out of my personal savings?
Mm.
And when I really looked at the numbers, that's how the fear went away. It was like, well, can I commit this number to my own success? Yes, I can. And then when I peeled back the other piece, when you really look at it, it doesn't, first of all, really matter what other people think. It matters, how you're moving toward your own definition of success in your own life. But at the same time, when I really thought about it, the perceived judgments that I thought were going to crash upon my head about things like she's lazy or she can't handle it or all of these things. What I really understood that came down to was reputation, and are we still serving our clients? And I'm lucky enough that I do have people working for me. And so I looked at, okay, well, so really this is a matter of delegating. I want my clients to be taken care of. I want my partners to be taken care of this whole time. So how can I delegate this in a way that it still functions?
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. It's like, okay, I've got people. Can I trust my team? Well, yeah, I can trust my team to do this. But I love the progression that you went through, starting with the money. And on the money part of it, did you have to close the deals in the pipeline first, or did you just again trust your team could get those closed while you were taking that time off? Then combined with your savings, you felt good about that.
Well, I'll go into a little bit more detail about how the sabbatical actually worked, because you noted at the beginning of our conversation, I call it my mini sabbatical.
Yeah.
And so what I ended up deciding to do was I decided that I was going to keep 4 of my clients who I was working deeply with.
Okay.
Who were very predictable. We could create appointments throughout the week. And I decided I was going to work 2 days a week, Tuesdays and Wednesdays.
Okay.
And so
Full days?
Full days, Tuesdays
Okay.
and Wednesdays.
Okay.
And that I was going to spend an hour checking my email and responding to email on the other weekdays. And so 1:00 every day or thereabouts, I would go in, check my email, respond to anything that needed to be responded to. And then an hour later, I'm out of email. And so, to your question of did I need to close those deals in the pipeline? Some of them I was able to rely on my team to handle for me. Some of those I still needed to handle myself.
Okay.
But as things come in, our business relies a lot on referrals.
Uh-huh.
And so as referrals would come in, I would see them in my email on a daily basis. And if I needed to handle those myself, I would. But a lot of times, the subject matter expert is actually someone on my team anyway. So they were able to take those and run with them and close those deals themselves.
Okay.
So I didn't find that, that aspect of it became a problem at all.
Okay. So you mentioned that you were processing emails twice a week, but were you checking email every day?
I was checking email every day, but only once a day.
Okay.
Only once a day.
Okay. Good. Because that can be such a rat hole once you get into that, and then the perception part that you talked about, how people would feel about you. Were you thinking about your team? Or were you thinking about your clients, or was it both?
Good question. I think primarily, fears are so ephemeral, right?
Yeah.
And so when I started thinking, oh my gosh, I can't do this, that initial pushback that you feel when you feel fear before you really delve into what it is, I think it was just kind of a general fear of what does it mean to be a business owner who takes 2 months off? It's ridiculous. There were all these like judgy thoughts in my head.
Yeah.
You're not a hard worker. You're not, so it was kind of just a general fear of what the general public might think of me. Not, to be honest with you, not that the general public actually thinks of me as much as I think they do. But when I delved into it with my coach, I really realized that the most important thing, the only people who do matter are my clients and my team. And so as far as my clients were concerned, I went to each of them, anybody who I was going to be, shifting over to another consultant, I went to each of them individually and said, here's what I'm doing. Are you going to feel comfortable? Let me make an introduction. Let's have a meeting together. So I really prepared for it.
Yeah.
I prepared my clients for it. And I also, I went to my team and said, this is what I'm doing. Can you cover for this? Are you okay with that? Will you feel comfortable? And that was fine too.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so you've touched on some of this already as you've been processing it with us, but tell us about, like, when you think of learnings that came out of it, and I'm thinking kind of like the big ones, the big ahas that you learned in this. What were those?
Okay, I never could have predicted this, but I discovered, I think this was really important for me. The things I was doing in my business that were actually really important, and the things I was doing that were spinning my wheels. Because I was able to, I really had to take a look at what, if I'm pretty much out for 2 months, what are the things that have to get done during that time? And so it forced me to take a look at what are the things I'm doing that maybe aren't making an impact, and also really challenging this idea of a 40 or 50-hour work week, and thinking less about time spent working and more about what are the most productive things that need to be done.
Yeah.
And what I found in that time was that the business was fine with me working 2 days a week. It was just fine. And that surprised me, but in a good way, right? Because that holds a lot of possibility. And then the second big thing was it did give me the opportunity to take that step back out of the weeds and get creative about where we were going next. And so, I think for many entrepreneurs, you can't keep down the creativity for very long, and taking a break is what actually sparks the creativity.
Uh-huh.
And so, so we've, since coming back from that, we've really been working at shifting our business model to, like I said before, the clients that we enjoy working with the most, that we're most effective with. And so that was a fantastic win.
Yeah. Well, I love that. So, I mean, I'm working through some things right now in terms of that kind of value of my time. And it's such a valuable exercise, but I can see how something like this would bring such clarity to that. And then I love what you say about the creativity piece, because creativity matters. If we're the visionary leader of our firm and we don't have any space to be creative, then we're not going to be a very good visionary leader, are we?
Absolutely. It is definitely something that we have to almost schedule into our days, our weeks, our months, because if we don't take that time to be creative and visionary, there's no one else who's going to lead our company to do that.
That's right. Absolutely. Well, we've already touched on some of this next question, but just in case you have something big you want to share in addition, why should every business owner do this, Courtney? And then when, like in terms of timing, what thoughts do you have there?
Yeah. So I think that, and I also want to say, everybody's journey is their own journey. Everybody's experiencing this world in their own body and their own reality through their own experiences. So I certainly wouldn't say there's no one size fits all.
Yeah.
But I would say, going back to what we were talking about at the beginning about burnouts, it's a great idea to take care of yourself before you reach the point where you can't take care of yourself and you can't take care of anybody else either.
Yeah.
Um, and so this is a great way to, you could take a full sabbatical, you could take a mini sabbatical, whatever kind of works for your life. But if you feel like you're heading toward burnout, or you feel like you can't be creative in your business, there is scientific proof that creativity thrives on rest.
Yeah.
And so taking rest in order to create that creativity is very important.
Yeah, it's the whole concept of putting the oxygen mask on yourself first on the airplane before you give it to somebody else, right? Because if we don't have the oxygen, then we're not going to have a team either.
Yeah, I think before this year, I thought that was just so much fluff. And this year, I've really learned what it means to have to take care of yourself first, because none of this stuff is going to, if you are an entrepreneur, if you are a business owner, nothing else is going to happen if you're not okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and in terms of timing, maybe there isn't. Maybe it's just one of those things, like you said, everybody has to figure that out. But I'm just curious, maybe in the sense of kind of where your business is. Do you have thoughts about like when's a good time to do this based on the maturity or growth cycle of your business?
Yes. Well, there is the money thing.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that helped me feel comfortable with it was that I looked at how much money it was going to cost me, or how much money I thought it was going to cost me. And I made a budget for it. And I asked myself, am I willing to commit this amount of money potentially to my own well-being? And the answer for me was yes. And so, if I hadn't been in a place where I had some savings, or that I felt like, my pipeline or my sales pipeline wasn't strong, where I felt like my team couldn't handle that around me, I probably would have made a different decision, taken rest in a different way.
Yeah.
And so, to kind of frame those in a positive light, if you have a team who is responsible and capable enough to take some of your responsibilities on for you, and that that's going to be okay, if you can commit the money that you think you're going to need for that time period. And sales pipeline is really important. If you feel like your sales pipeline is in a space where that is going to be able to contribute enough to what you need to keep your business going forward during that time. I think those three things are really key.
Yeah, that's great. This is so helpful, Courtney, for a variety of reasons. But what I loved about what you did, what really stood out to me, and I remember the first time we talked about it, as you were talking about it, I could feel like weight lifting off me thinking about doing it.
Love that.
Much less thinking, much less doing it. But what I loved about what you did is you've kind of shown us a way to do a sabbatical in a different, more creative way. So the mini sabbatical that you took is different than the full sabbatical where someone just completely checks out. And that feels really scary and hard to do, but you found a way to do it in a really creative way that allowed you to kind of stay in touch with the things you needed to stay in touch with, but also get the rest and renewal that you needed, which I think is so important. And what's cool about it is that whether you have full-time staff or you have fractional, part-time staff helping you, there's ways that you can make this work, right? So you've kind of showed us a model for, and no matter where I am in the growth of my business, if I've got the budget, if I got the money set aside, and I've got a sales pipeline, and I've got people who I can trust to kind of keep things rolling while I'm gone, I can go do a mini sabbatical. Maybe it's not 2 months, maybe it's a month. But gosh, whatever it takes to kind of get that refreshed, kind of perspective and get the oxygen again and get that creativity flowing again, I mean, it's so worth it, right? It's so worth it. I can't imagine you're probably still trying to figure out and will still, downstream be able to look back and see the real value that this had for your business, that kind of refreshed creativity. I'm sure you're still figuring that out, but I'm sure it's going to be significant.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because, I think there are some points in our business and in our personal lives where we take a step back to step forward. And if we can look at it with that long view of, I am taking this step back in order that I will grow my business in the future, and just trust that that will happen, then yeah, I am definitely, I'm very sure that the direction that we're heading in now with the shifts that I made during my sabbatical, I think are going to pay off.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for taking the time to share the story with us. I know we've been meaning to do this for a while since we talked about it the first time, so I'm glad we got this scheduled. And so, if someone would like to reach out to you just to talk more about your experience or to learn more about what you're doing at Powerfully Simple HR, how can they get in touch with you?
So they can get in touch through our website at powerfullysimplehr.com. They can find me on LinkedIn with my name at the bottom. Note the unusual spelling. Or they can reach out to me directly at Courtney at powerfullysimplehr.com.
Awesome. That's great. Courtney, well, thanks again for the time. Love the conversation. Appreciate you inspiring me, and I'm sure many others, to make a mini sabbatical happen this year.
Hope so. I hope so. I hope so.
Yeah, it's going to happen. So thanks again.
Thanks, Steve. I appreciate it.
See ya.